The night before my wedding, I stared at myself in the hotel bathroom mirror for what felt like an hour. I wasn't admiring the way my curls had been pinned for the rehearsal dinner. I wasn't daydreaming about the perfect white dress hanging behind me. I was trying to recognize the woman who, less than 2 weeks ago, had slept with her coworker in a hotel room 3 states away. And who, tomorrow, would walk down the aisle and marry a man who had no idea. I wish I could tell you it was an accident. That I was drunk beyond reason, manipulated, cornered, confused, but the truth is, I wasn't. I had 3 glasses of wine. I knew what I was doing, and for the briefest, sharpest second, I wanted it. Not because of Marcus, the coworker I barely even liked, but because I wanted to feel something. Anything. I hadn't felt much in months. Ethan, my fiancé at the time, now my husband, was everything a girl like me was supposed to want. He was kind, solid, thoughtful. He kept a spare umbrella in his car trunk, just in case, and mailed his grandmother birthday cards with handwritten letters inside. We met in college. He'd walk me home from my chemistry labs even though they ended past 10, and once stood outside in the rain for an hour, just to make sure I got home safe from a party. He was dependable in a way that felt like gravity. And I loved him. Or, I thought I did. Maybe I still do. But somewhere between job promotions, couples budgeting spreadsheets, and Pinterest boards of flatware sets, something in me dulled. Quietly, softly, like a light fading out in a hallway you never walk down anymore. By the time the Boston conference came around, I was already half a ghost in my own skin. Marcus was just available. We were both part of the marketing team. We shared an Uber from the airport, laughed too hard about bad conference food, sat next to each other during panels. He was charismatic in the way people are when they have nothing to prove. That night, he knocked on my hotel door after dinner. He said, "You left your badge downstairs," but he didn't even have it in his hand. I should have closed the door. Should have told him to leave. Should have remembered Ethan waiting at home, triple-checking our wedding playlist. But instead, I stepped aside. He kissed me like a secret, like he already knew I wouldn't stop him. I didn't. The next morning, Marcus acted like nothing happened, just texted me the conference agenda and joked about getting espresso before the keynote speaker. I didn't answer. I packed. I flew home. I hugged Ethan longer than I should have, like I was apologizing with my body instead of my words, and then I buried it. Deep. Too deep. I told myself it was a mistake, a crack in my otherwise unblemished record. That if I just focused on the wedding, on being good, it would fade. But it didn't. The guilt sat in my throat like a stone. I stopped sleeping. I kept zoning out during conversations. One night, Ethan made us pasta and I burst into tears because it reminded me of the room service menu in Boston. He thought I was stressed about the wedding. I let him believe that. Now when I look back at those wedding photos, I see it. Not in the dress or the flowers or the smiles, but in my eyes. There's a hollowness there I can't unsee. A glimmer of fear I tried so hard to smother. I stood across from the most loyal man I'd ever met, said vows I wasn't sure I deserved, and kissed him with a mouth that still remembered another name. And no one knew. No one but me. People say you should never start a marriage with a lie. But what if the lie is the only thing holding it together? Ethan and I met at a campus voter registration drive during sophomore year. He handed me a clipboard and smiled like he'd already decided I was the most interesting person in the room. I didn't believe in love at first sight, but I did believe in safety. And that smile? It felt like shelter. He walked me to class the next day. Then the next. By week 3, we were eating leftover Chinese in his dorm room while watching Jeopardy, like we were already married. Back then, I was drawn to his stillness. I came from chaos. Divorced parents, yelling through walls, boyfriends who cheated and blamed me for being too emotional. Ethan was different. He made plans, he remembered birthdays, he never raised his voice. I told myself, this is the kind of man you marry. And eventually, I did. For the first few years everything was good. Not fiery, not explosive, not reckless, but good. We moved in together after graduation. He got a job in logistics, I went into digital marketing. We split rent, took turns cooking, called each other when we were running late. He kissed my forehead every morning before leaving for work. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, something shifted. It started with the little things, the way he turned down sex more often, not rudely, just tired. The way he always defaulted to the same 2 restaurants, never open to something new. The way he planned every weekend 2 weeks in advance, penciling me in like a meeting. Nothing was wrong. But nothing felt alive, either. I tried to bring it up, once, said I missed when we used to dance in the kitchen at midnight or stay up too late talking about dumb hypotheticals. He smiled and said, "We're just getting older, babe." But I wasn't old. I was 27. And already, I felt like a wife in a Hallmark movie whose spark had flickered out before the second act. Then came the engagement. He proposed on a lake dock at sunset, roses, candles, ring in a velvet box. A photographer hiding in the bushes. It was perfect. But the moment he slipped the ring on my finger, I felt a jolt of panic I couldn't name. Was it fear? Guilt? Doubt? I told myself it was just nerves. That every bride goes through it. That cold feet meant you care. But deep down I knew better. It wasn't cold feet. It was me silently screaming into a future I wasn't sure I chose. Still, I kept smiling, kept checking things off the wedding list. Bridesmaids, DJ, catering, registry, and the more I planned, the less I felt like myself. Somewhere between dress fittings and floral samples, I turned into her. The version of me that looked good in photos, answered politely at bridal showers, and laughed off questions about when's the honeymoon, baby. I was performing. And no one noticed. Enter Marcus. Marcus was new at the company, hired 6 months before the Boston trip. He was the type of guy who made every room feel warmer. Tall, sarcastic, always carrying cold brew and offering it to whoever looked half awake. We weren't close, but we clicked fast. Same sense of humor, same brutal workload, same exhausted eyes. He never flirted, at least not overtly. But he noticed things. He noticed when I changed my nail color, when I started wearing my hair differently, when I stayed late without clocking it. Ethan didn't. At first I felt guilty for noticing that difference. Then I started craving it. Boston was a conference for mid-level creatives, panels during the day, networking mixers at night. I didn't expect anything except sore feet and bad coffee. But when Marcus and I ended up at the same bar after day 2, it felt inevitable. We talked about work, sure. But also about music, family. The weird way adulthood feels like a job interview you never applied for. He said, "You seem like someone who had to grow up too fast." I froze. No one had ever said that out loud before. That night, he walked me back to my room. I told him he didn't have to. He shrugged and said, "Maybe I just want to make sure you're okay." The door closed behind us. I didn't invite him in, but I didn't stop him either. The next morning, I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. I'd crossed a line I could never uncross. I knew it didn't mean anything to Marcus. He was kind, but not attached. And I hated that it didn't mean much to me either, not in the romantic sense. But it meant everything in the moral sense. I'd betrayed Ethan. The man who brought me soup when I was sick. Who called my mom on Mother's Day even when I forgot. Who never asked for anything more than my trust, and I broke it. When I got home, I buried the memory. Smiled through brunches, picked up our marriage license, tried to forget. But some things don't stay buried, especially when they come back in the form of a text message that simply read, "That night, I can't stop thinking about it." Our wedding was beautiful. Everyone said so. The venue overlooked a valley with golden fields. The sun set right on cue. My father cried during the father-daughter dance. Ethan looked at me like I was the only person in the world. And yet, as we recited our vows, I could barely hear myself. My own voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. I kept staring at Ethan's hands, the same hands that had built our bookshelf, that had bandaged my knee when I fell hiking, that now gently held mine at the altar. And all I could think was, "You deserve better than me." But I smiled. I kissed him. I signed the marriage certificate with a trembling hand. No one noticed. No one suspected. I was a flawless bride, or so it seemed. The first few weeks after the wedding were calm, almost too calm. Ethan wanted to keep things low-key, just you and me, he said. We cooked dinner, unpacked gifts, wrote thank you cards together. He even suggested starting a little garden on our balcony, like we always talked about. I tried to lean into it. I really did. But inside I felt cold, detached, like my body was still on autopilot from the wedding, but my soul hadn't come home yet. The guilt festered. Some nights I'd lie awake beside Ethan, listening to him breathe, wondering what kind of person I'd become. I'd hold my breath every time he reached for me, half hoping he wouldn't. Because I couldn't give him what he wanted, what he deserved, not while carrying this weight. Then Marcus texted again. I know this is wrong, but I can't stop thinking about that night. I didn't reply. He followed up 2 days later. You were honest, you were real. I haven't felt that with anyone in a long time. That made me laugh, bitterly. Honest? I hadn't been honest since I slipped back into my dress in that Boston hotel room and pretended nothing happened. Still, I didn't block him, didn't respond, but didn't delete the messages either. A part of me wanted to be punished, to feel exposed, to have someone acknowledge what I'd done. So I let his words sit there, like tiny landmines in my inbox. One morning while Ethan was making coffee, he glanced over and said, "Who's Marcus?" I froze. What, Marcus? I saw the name pop up on your screen yesterday, just wondered. Coworker? I nodded too quickly. Yeah, just work stuff. He's on a different team now, but we collaborated on the Boston conference. He didn't press. He kissed my forehead and handed me my mug. I wanted to scream. Over the next few weeks, I became a shadow of myself. I avoided intimacy. I picked fights over laundry. I cried in the shower. Ethan noticed, of course. He always notices. One night he sat me down at the kitchen table and asked, "Are you happy?" The question hit me like a slap. I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again, then said, "I'm just tired." He nodded, said, "Me too." But I could see the ache in his eyes. That same night, I got a message from Marcus. "I know it wasn't just physical for you. I could feel it." I snapped. I called him. His voice was calm, curious, like he'd been expecting me. "Why are you doing this?" I hissed. "You said it was a one-time thing," he replied, "and yet here you are, calling me. You haven't blocked me, Lauren." He was right, and that terrified me. 2 days later, I found Ethan on the couch with my phone in his hand. The screen was open to Marcus's last message. He looked up at me, and the look on his face, pure silence, no rage, just heartbreak, was worse than any shouting match. He asked one question. "Did you sleep with him?" I couldn't lie anymore. Yes. The word hung in the air like a thunderclap. He stood up, walked to the sink, and braced himself against the counter. Didn't say a word for almost a full minute. Then, without turning around, he said, "You could have told me before we got married." I whispered, "I know." He finally looked at me. His eyes weren't angry, they were devastated, like something inside him had died. "You promised me forever, and now I can't believe a single thing you say." He didn't sleep in our bed that night. He didn't file for divorce the next day either. But the silence between us grew roots. And in that silence, I started to realize something far worse than guilt. I didn't just ruin our marriage. I ruined the one place in the world where I'd always felt safe. Ethan didn't yell, didn't throw anything, didn't pack a bag and storm out the door like I might have, if the roles were reversed. Instead, he became still. Not in the comforting way I'd always loved about him, but in a suffocating, hollow kind of stillness. Like the air after a car crash, like the way a song cuts out when the power dies. He moved through our apartment like a ghost, waking up early, leaving for work before I got out of bed, eating in silence, sleeping on the couch without a word. It was worse than anger. At least if he screamed, I could scream back. But this silence, it left me drowning. I tried talking to him, tried making dinner, tried asking if he wanted to go for a walk, watch a movie, anything. He gave me one-sentence answers. Sometimes just nods. Once I asked if he was going to leave. He looked at me and said, "I haven't decided yet." I don't know why, but that hurt more than if he'd just said yes. A week later, Ethan met me at the door holding my phone. "I need to know," he said. "Is it still happening?" I blinked. "What?" "You and him. Are you still talking?" I shook my head. "No, I haven't replied to him in weeks." He nodded slowly, then held up the phone. "But you haven't blocked him either." He was right. I stared at the screen in his hand and felt the final thread snap inside me. Not just guilt anymore. Not even shame. Just loss. Of him. Of us. Of who I thought I was. That night, I deleted Marcus' number, blocked him, deleted the messages. It didn't change anything. Ethan still slept on the couch. 2 days later, Marcus showed up at my office. I didn't know he was coming. I was in the middle of writing campaign copy when I looked up and saw him by the elevators. He smiled, casual. "Hey." I stood up so fast my chair almost toppled. "What are you doing here?" "Just had a meeting with upper management. Thought I'd stop by. See how you're doing." I glanced around. My heart was racing. You can't be here. He leaned in slightly. Come on, Lauren, you can't tell me you haven't thought about it. That did it. I took a step back, looked him dead in the eyes, and said, Marcus, I made a mistake. A huge one, and I'm paying for it every day. But you being here isn't helping. His smile faded. So that's it? We just pretend it never happened? I shook my head. No, I have to live with it, but I'm not dragging it out just because you don't want to let go. He stared at me for a moment, then walked away. I told Ethan that night. He didn't say anything at first, just kept folding laundry. Then he said, Did you ask him to come? No, I said. I didn't even know he was in the building. He nodded again. Always nodding, always internalizing, like he was building a case against me in his own mind, but never showing the evidence. I believe you, he said. But that doesn't mean I can trust you. I felt like I was crumbling from the inside out. The next morning, Ethan was gone before sunrise. When I checked my phone, there was a note on the kitchen counter. Staying with Greg for a few days. I need space. That was the first time I cried. I sat on the kitchen floor, knees tucked to my chest, and sobbed until I couldn't breathe. I thought about calling him, begging him to come back. But I didn't. Because I knew I was the one who broke it. In the days that followed, I tried to feel normal, went to work, ate lunch, walked the long way home. I kept looking at our wedding photos still on the mantle, still smiling, still perfect. And I wanted to scream at them. She didn't deserve him. She didn't deserve any of it. But I had. I'd gotten the love story. The good man, the life so many women prayed for, and I'd thrown it all away. Then one night, Ethan texted me. Just one sentence. Can we talk tomorrow? My hands shook as I typed back, yes. We met at the park near our apartment. The same one where he used to read while I took photos of the trees. He looked tired. Not angry, just exhausted. He sat down on the bench beside me and said, I've been thinking a lot. About what love means. What forgiveness means. I stayed quiet. He continued, I don't hate you, Lauren. I think I wish I did, but I don't. I still love you. But I don't know if I can come back to what we were. My eyes filled with tears. I understand, I whispered. I'm not saying it's over, he said. But if we move forward, it's not going to be the same. We'd need therapy, space, time. I nodded. Whatever you need. He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in weeks. I just want to be able to look at you and not feel like I lost something. I broke down, and for the first time in what felt like years he held me. Not like a husband, not like a stranger, just a man holding the woman who broke his heart, and maybe still had a piece of it left. We didn't jump back into normal. There was no grand reconciliation, no impromptu make-up sex under warm lights, no cinematic montage of therapy sessions and inside jokes restored. Instead, there were Sunday evenings where we sat on opposite ends of the couch, talking about nothing in particular. There were texts during the workday. Not, I miss you, but I picked up milk, or, did you already pay the water bill? And once a week there was therapy. The kind that left us raw, honest, bare. The first session I expected Ethan to do all the talking, to vent, to release the weight I'd shackled him with. But instead, the therapist looked at me and asked, Why did you do it? I opened my mouth, then closed it. I could have said I felt disconnected. I could have said Marcus saw me in a moment I didn't see myself. I could have said I was overwhelmed, scared of turning into a version of myself that felt numb and automated. But in truth, I didn't know, and that, more than anything, terrified me. Ethan didn't ask for a separation, but he didn't move back into our bed either. He needed space, he said. Not punishment, not revenge, just time. I gave it to him. Even when it hurt. Especially when it hurt. Because I finally realized this wasn't about me needing to get him back. It was about learning who I was. Now that I had burned the version of myself I pretended to be. One night, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror after brushing my teeth and asked my reflection out loud, Would you marry you? The answer came slower than I expected. But it came. Not then. Not who I was. But maybe someday. Maybe if I kept showing up, kept being honest, kept letting go of the perfect image and started holding on to the truth instead. Months passed. Marcus didn't reach out again. I heard he transferred to another department, possibly another city. Part of me was relieved, another part ashamed, had almost wished he would. Not because I missed him, but because it would have been easier to cast him as the villain instead of facing what I'd done of my own free will. But he didn't come back, and that silence forced me to stop deflecting. One Saturday in November, Ethan and I took a walk through the park. It had rained the night before, and the path was muddy, the air thick with fallen leaves. He asked if I wanted to stop for coffee. We sat at a bench outside a tiny cafe, holding warm cups, watching the street. "I never thought I'd be someone who stayed after something like this," he said. I looked down. "I never thought I'd be someone who did something like this." He was quiet for a moment, then said, "I still don't trust you." "Not completely. But I believe you want to earn it." Tears pricked my eyes. "I do." He nodded. "That's why I'm still here." Some people think betrayal ends a relationship, and for many it should. But for us, it became a mirror. It forced us to stop hiding behind politeness and productivity, and actually see the parts of ourselves we'd buried. His fear of abandonment, my fear of becoming invisible, both of our need for validation we never learned to ask for. Love didn't save us, we saved ourselves. One conversation at a time, one choice at a time, 1 inch at a time. A year later, Ethan moved back into our bedroom. He still flinches sometimes when I'm late getting home. I still catch myself double-checking my own motives every time I talk to a male coworker. But we're trying. We're learning that healing isn't a light switch, it's a dimmer. And some days, the light is softer than others. I won't tie this story up with a bow. I won't tell you we're stronger than ever, or that I'd do it all the same if I had the chance. What I will tell you is this. I betrayed the man I loved, and somehow, he still chose to see me. Not the curated version. Not the highlight reel. Me, and every day since, I've tried to become the kind of woman who deserves that kind of grace.